Welcome back to the county seat. We've been talking about sage grouse, the habitat, the potential for a listed endangered species listing, and the things we're doing to prevent it. So I have to go back and address something you said at the very beginning of this program, Larry. And so those of you watching on the internet, you may want to go back, okay? My question is, did you not say that this whole thing got triggered by a court order? Is this a result of some litigation?
Yes, indirectly. Basically what has happened over time is for years, over 10 years, the service has been in petitioned and various litigation suits over sage grouse. And then in 2010, we finally did a 12-month finding and found that it was warranted for listing, but precluded by higher priorities, which meant there's other things going on that we felt it was secure enough at that time that it didn't need to list it immediately, like an emergency listing or anything. But then subsequent to that, we were in some litigation, and we had a court settlement, and that litigation basically required the service to go in and look at all 251 candidate species, or whatever it was, I think it was 251, and put out a schedule to either propose those for listing or take them off the candidate list. And as part of that schedule, sage grouse was included, and it was set for September 2015. So all the candidate species are actually going to have a determination made on them. Sage grouse, because it's so big and controversial, is a really noticeable one, but we've got other species that this is happening in the state, a tiger beetle and a least chub and various other species that we're going to go through the same process. They're just not as controversial.
Potentially, how many acres of the United States could be affected if we put every single species that's up there? Would we be able to cross the street in front of our house?
Yes, you would. But the sage grouse is a big one. It's really a landscape. That's the reason it's attracting so much attention. It's a landscape scale species that covers a lot of habitat and a lot of acres.
Okay, Juan, my question for you. Litigation. It's not one of your favorite things, is it? How much of your resources get tied up avoiding, dodging, or settling litigation that comes against your agency?
Well, it certainly consumes a lot of our time, litigation. We have quite a bit here in the state of Utah in terms of the BLM, from all sides. We get litigation from all sides. My advice to my staff always has been is that we're going to look at all of the science information, biological information, all of the information we have, and then the BLM is going to make a decision, because at the end of the day, we manage on behalf of the American public 23 million acres of land here in the state of Utah. And we have to be the ones that make the choices, the decisions based on all the facts that we have. After we do that, then certainly it's our democracy that those that would like to bring litigation upon the BLM, they certainly can, and they certainly do. We just simply have to follow up with that litigation and try to do the best that we can to follow through with the decisions that we made.
Mike, you were about to say something, and I threw it over to Juan. So.
Well, I struggle on some of these fronts, because I think, not with all, but I think with some, this isn't even about the sage grouse. I think if you look in the state of Utah and the efforts that have been made in Utah over the last few years, as has been noted, there has been millions of dollars, hundreds of thousands of acres that have been treated to help with the sage grouse numbers. And when this listing decision is being considered, it's looked kind of at an entire west-wide viewscape. And Utah is not separated from this. And so the efforts and everything that we've been involved in really has not really been taken in account for the things that we've been done. And to the litigation point, one of the things that I think we need to reform the Endangered Species Act, frankly, and frankly there are some special interest groups that will sue BLM, and the way that this works is the federal government will then help them pay for their lawsuit that they're suing the federal government with to perform the lawsuit. And so we're using federal money on both sides. It's no wonder we're going broke as a country.
That's a topic for another show, and one I'm certainly willing to bring up. So, and to that end, are the other states, and he brings up a good point, if Utah makes this Herculean effort and they secure the sage grouse in his state, and the plans from Wyoming and Idaho and Nevada and wherever else this is being considered don't come in with a strong plan, Is it going to be listed across the board, or will Utah say, well, you get a hall pass because you've done a good job?
Right now, the way we're looking, there is no consideration of what we would call like distinct population segments or anything like. There is actually, well, actually there is for what's called a bi-state and they're looking at a little piece of Washington. But basically, in the last listing or the last 12-month finding in 2010, we determined there was no subspecies of sage grouse, so it was the same across the range. And I guess so the way I would answer it is, what Utah is doing is very important, and that's going to contribute to the whole. And we need to make sure all the other states contribute to the whole.
I was going to say, but if they're a slacker and we do our job and we improve the populations here, that edict is still going to come down and it's going to be endangered across the board.
And we're a small population compared to, for example, Wyoming.
Mm-hmm.
We are, and at the end of the day, there's no guarantee that everything that we do here in Utah will preclude this species from being listed. You know, it's at a higher level, and so we need to really let the public know that we are doing everything that we can. We're going to do all of the actions that we think would preserve this species, but at the end of the day, we the BLM know that after all that we have done, we may still not prevail, but our goal is to prevail, for it not to be listed.
And I think we're all moving down that path. It's like, that's what we want to do.
And that's what I appreciated about this state working group, is I think that was the one goal. You know, this was a diverse group, it really was, and you bring that many people in with diverse ideas, but we had one common goal that I think we were all...
They were all afraid of his boss.
But we were all united in that one concept is we do not want to have a listing, and how do we build a plan so we do not end up with a listing.
Well, if it's working so well in Utah, if it's working so well in Utah, what can they do to influence the other states that are part of this range? Because, I mean, it just, something seems patently unfair that if this state and this director and the state agencies get in and do their job, and you're one of the most engaged directors I've ever seen here, so that's good. But, you know, you do your job and you still get punished with the rest of the class at the end of the day. It just doesn't seem fair.
Reform to the Endangered Species Act. I mean, courts really drive this. It really, I mean, it's the courts that drive it, really.
But other states are doing this too. I mean,
yeah.
and other states are doing the same process as Utah. Wyoming's doing this, Idaho's doing this, Nevada's doing this process. So I am very optimistic that all of the states, when all of us are combined, and the court sees all of our efforts, I believe that they will say, and they will give us a chance to implement our actions. I really do believe that's going to happen at the end of 2015.
Wyoming already has a plan, a state plan for management of sage grouse. Idaho is maybe a little bit ahead of where we are, or about the same place, and I think Nevada is about the same place or a little behind from where we are. So I think there is a lot of movement across the West.
Well, that's great. I do want to take just 1 second before we finish this segment and see if we can get a close-up of your pin on your lapel. I just want people to know. I want people to know what we're talking about here.
Okay? I wore it just for you guys. So.
Anyway, gentlemen, thank you for joining us today. I got just about 30 seconds. Anybody got a we can do it moment that they want to share with us very quickly?
Well, we can do this. I believe that if all of us work together as we have so far, with Kathleen's leadership, Clark's leadership, and all of us here in the state, the governor's leadership, we can put a plan together here in the state of Utah that can say at the end that we're proud of that plan, we can make it work, and we can make a strong case in front of Fish and Wildlife Service that it should not be listed in 2015.
Thank you all very much for joining us. It's been a great hour. Appreciate your making the trip in. We'll look for you next week on the county seat, and get involved. That's my clue.